Hey gorgeous, this is episode number 285 with the amazing Chief Pencil Sharpener, Gabe Arnold.
Hi, this is Gabe Arnold. You're listening to the Heart Sells podcast with Christine Schlonski. Enjoy.
I'm so looking forward to this conversation with Gabe. You might not be aware of this, but Gabe was also on the Heart-Centered Lead Generation Summit sharing his expertise. And it was such an amazing presentation that I asked him to come back and share more of his wisdom with the Heart Sells podcast community. So here he is today. We will be talking about how to invest into your audience for massive results. Also, I hope you will be inspired by Gabe's story. In his early 20s, Gabe saw his construction business hit by the downturn in the real estate market and basically failed for a $1 million bankruptcy. But he is back. He managed to get back on his feet. He is now the founder and chief pencil sharpener at Copywriter Today, a subscription-based article writing service. And he has so many golden nuggets with us to share that I can't wait to dive in. So let's get started. Well, I am so super pumped to have you on the show today, Gabe. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's always good to hang out and chat with you.
Yeah, I just love the content you provided for the Heart-Centered Lead Generation Summit. And I know that everybody listening back then was just in awe with what you shared because it was such an amazing advice. And I'm so excited to get more great ideas and content out of you for our audience today. But what I want to do first is, because you had such an interesting business life, so to speak, and during these rather challenging times, you had them in your early 20s when you saw your construction business kind of going downhill. And you really picked yourself up and created this wonderful company. So I would love for you to just talk a little bit about the challenge and what you did to inspire people to see that when they have the right idea at the right time and they know how to sell, life will be so much easier.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to have been, I've been an entrepreneur since I was 16, so 22 years this year.
Wow.
And probably before then, but like officially I was taking checks at 16. So that's when I count.
Yeah, well, you were probably born an entrepreneur.
Yeah. But so a couple decades in, and I'm just still learning. I always try to just be a learner and not pretend like I know everything, because I don't by any stretch of imagination, but just still learning as I'm going here. I'm always paying attention and watching for mental models that help me with success and help my team and those that I coach and support. And then I'm also trying to surround myself with people who are a little bit farther down the road, have a little bit more experience, and can maybe share a better way with me. And when you were talking about kind of like my early adversity and challenges, it actually reminded me of something that Brian Kurt said to me a few weeks ago, and I know he was on the summit too, if I recall.
Yeah. And
he just off the cuff said, "Oh, well, this is the fourth big downturn that I've been through in my business, in my entrepreneurial career, and like here's the things you need to do." And like he gave some great advice about just how to continue, and that just stuck out to me because like I've gone through two big downturns in business, and I honestly feel like the third or fourth one won't really matter at all to me. And not in the sense of like it won't destabilize me. That's a more clear way to say it. And the only reason that I've been able to do that is because I've been surrounding myself with people that are a little farther down the road and can say, oh, like here's what's going to happen, or here's what you need to watch for, or this is a normal business cycle. And the first time you go through something really hard in business and you face a lot of adversity, and I lost literally everything in my whole life, not just my business, but I lost everything. Got divorced, my best friend died, my grandpa died, and I went bankrupt. And I was facing some charges that fortunately got dropped, because when I got stuck for $250,000 from my clients, then my subcontractors and the people working for me thought that I did it intentionally. And so they were all wound up, but I cleared that up and said, no, like, this is what happened. It's unfortunate, but this is what happened. And so going through that level of adversity for the first time, you're really not sure what to do. And like, it's a lot of pain and it's hard to navigate. But once you step back from it and you choose a learning perspective, and like, what gift was I given here today and what can I learn from it? Then everything becomes valuable. And when things are valuable, I think things get a little bit easier perspective wise. And so that was, 2007, 2008, because I got hit early in the housing market crash here in the States. And I know there was a ripple effect around the world from that as well. Now, going through COVID, it was interesting. And this isn't this is just pattern recognition for me. So going through the housing market crash, I started studying like, okay, what economic cycles happen, what things typically happen. And basically every 8 to 12 years, we have a big economic reset and something triggers it, but it's, in my opinion, a healthy reset for the economy. And so 18 months before COVID, I was predicting a recession to my audience, to my team, everything. And I said, this is going to happen relatively soon. And when it happened, I'm just grateful that I was able to learn from the first round that I went through, because we were prepared and we made some pivots and adjustments, but none of this has been shocking at all to me, which I'm grateful for. And secondly, interestingly enough, which you never can tell the future, but now we're halfway through it, or I don't know, halfway through this year at least. It's been an incredibly profitable and incredibly successful year, and we're busier than ever. And I think that comes from just, appreciating all the lessons and learning every day, and not getting wound up about what other people tell you, and not, not telling yourself you have to feel a certain way about something, but finding the positive and just learning from what happens. So.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And you said something, well, lots of stuff, but ones that just stood out was you choose to.
Yes.
And I think that's really important. So, like for me as an entrepreneur, like this is like the first downturn kind of thing. But I have to say that I'm like stronger than I was ever before, because so many people now realize they have to figure out their sales game.
Yes.
Right. And, well, if you don't do it now, like when will you do it? Like do it before you go downhill with your company, right? Really give your gifts to the world now. And I just love that you shared, like, be prepared. So what can people do now that experience challenges? What do they need to look out for so that they are better off when, the next challenge knocks on the door?
Yeah, well, I think if they're listening to your podcast, and even if they just listen to the name of it, then they will be successful. And I'll dig into that. But I was telling, and I'll explain that in a second here. I was telling somebody the other day, a new client who I brought on to coach and help them scale their agency, because they're just starting out and they want to grow a larger organization like that I'm grateful I get to be a part of. And I said, I don't mean this arrogantly, but I want to give you an example. And I said, basically, I can click a button or make a post and make money. And I can, I sold a podcasting program and did a big launch earlier this year, and it was a huge success. And if I put something out there today, I can sell things very quickly. And I said, the reason that is, I said, I'm not saying that, like I said, to be prideful or arrogant, but I want to point out the reason that I can do that is that I've heavily invested in my audience for the last at least 3 or 4 years, probably a lot longer, but very focused in the last 3 or 4 years. And so if you really want to be successful in sales, there's obviously a lot of like principled approaches and strategies and things that you need to use that you can learn from Christine. And I mean, people like me, and there's a lot of people you can learn sales from, right? All of us are here to serve and help you. But if you really understand that great sales and depth of sales potential comes from a heart of service, then everything is easy. Because if I show up, if, Christine, you asked me like, oh, how would you solve this problem? And I really treat you just like I'd treat my older sister who I love and care about, and I treat you the same way because I love and care about you too as another, person that I get to interact with. You can tell that. You can tell that immediately as the way I talk, the way I write, the way I show up. And the great news is that you will either be comfortable and ready to buy from me now. There's the now is the what, 5% or something, and then the soon is the next percentage, and then the later is the rest, right? You may buy now, or you may buy in a little bit, or you may buy much later. But that first impression and that first interaction of us building the relationship is what builds my Goodwill bank account. And if you want to be super successful in sales, all you have to do is invest in your Goodwill bank account every day. That's like the foundation for me. You do have to understand how to present and sell. And there are skills you need to have, but the skills are a component, and then how you show up is a big piece of it. So it's definitely time to learn sales. It's just as much a time to show up and serve and create a ton of value, because at the right time, that will come back to you.
Yeah, I so agree. Like one of the biggest, well, let's say like coaching components over the last months was really to remind my clients that they are the leaders, that they are amazing, that they are powerful, that they get to decide, and that it's now really time, even though nobody knows where this is going to end up, somebody has to still show the way and remind people to stay empowered and to make good choices and decisions for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just love that. And, I said that before, but you're the Chief Pencil Sharpener. and it's, I always, I see that sharpened pencil. And I see that also, as a weapon, because every word you write with that sharpened pencil that sits correctly, that attracts that wonderful client or soulmate client, as I call them, perfect client, dream client, whatever you want to call them, is so important. And that is also a tool that you use to create money. You can just put out that blog post because you have learned the art of writing, the art to connect to people you don't even see, right? In a sales conversation, you see the person, you hear the person, but the person connects with you and your content way before. Yeah, so before we go into that and what people, what kind of level of knowledge they need to have to make life a little bit easier, I would just love to know, what was the very, very first thing that you ever sold in your life?
The first one I remember, I probably sold other stuff too, but the first thing I remember is I sold, I was about probably 7 or 8 years old, maybe 9, I wasn't 10 yet. And I was out walking on my landlord's property because we just rented, we rented a home where we lived. I was walking out on these paths through the forest, and my landlord and his daughter, his daughter was probably like my age now, like, 35 or 40 or something like that. And I had caught this snake and killed this this big black snake that was like 4 feet tall, like as tall as me. Sorry. But anyway, I just killed it, and I was very proud walking down the path with it, and I ran into my landlord and his daughter, and she said, "Hey, could you make a snakeskin belt out of that for me?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "How much would it cost me?" And I think I said $40, $20 or $40. I don't remember. Whatever, it was a lot of money to me back then. And she's like, "All right, sure." She's like, I'll be back in 2 weeks and I'll come pick it up from you. So wow. I was into taxidermy as a kid, and so I made what hopefully was not a horrifically awful snakeskin belt, and she paid me, and I'm sure she never ever wore it because nobody in their right mind would. But that is one of the first things I remember selling, and I remember the thrill of getting paid and like closing the deal and getting the commitment. I don't remember if she paid me then or when she picked it up. I can't remember, but I knew I had the signature, so to speak, on the deal. And even talking about it now, like that's what I love closing deals
Yeah.
probably more than anything else in business. So
Yeah, yeah, you get this huge smile on your face. I just love that. So obviously, I'm not into kill animals or use their skin. So, but and I'm not a big fan of snakes either. So,
I don't.
they need to stay really far away from me, like as far as they can. But I love that business idea. So you were just having you listened,
Yes.
right? You saw the interest. You could have said yeah, well, or you could have had an excuse or whatever. So you made it happen, and
Yep.
you got paid. And yeah, I totally share that. When someone says yes to what you have to offer, this is an amazing feeling. And I love that you still remember how it felt, and that it was such an amazing emotion
Yeah.
that you get triggered, right? Like, how can I serve more? Like, helping people to make their dreams come true. In exchange, they help me to make my dreams come true. And all
Yep.
of a sudden, here we are creating a better world, hopefully without snakes.
Definitely.
or snake skin belts. Um, but just from the concept itself, it just fascinates me over and over again. What can people come up with, and what are they getting paid for, and whose day or week or life they change with whatever they do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely when you realize that everybody has a problem, that they need to solve, and you start to become more creative and realize, oh, I have the resources to solve that, or I can figure out how to solve that, or I have an existing resource or skill set, then the world opens up a lot, and you go, oh, they could use my help, and they could use my help. And what's great is when you walk the talk and you are who you are and you're authentic and you show up and invest in that Goodwill bank account, then eventually people will go, oh, Christine, don't you like coach on sales, and don't you, teach these things? Could you help me? That's like the effortless sale, because
Yeah,
you've put all the effort in ahead of time, because they
yeah,
already know who you are and you've already invested in your audience. And those are the really fun ones. And then, the other parts of sales are proactively reaching out and saying, hey, I see you're in the middle of this, and this is something I offer and help. And I do both equally. And that's what builds a business. And that's like you said, that's how you make the world a better place. Unfortunately, I'm a little older and more mature. I'm definitely, like you mentioned, I'm not into killing animals and not into doing that stuff anymore, but I still got my first sale that way. So
totally. And thank you for sharing it, right? It's so valuable. And yeah, I just love hearing those stories, and also like seeing how you evolve, like as a human, right? I'm always amazed that when you take some time and you look back and where you were like a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago as a kid, what has happened, and what has happened due to your decisions that you
yeah.
made. So how can people start to create that goodwill bank account? Somebody might just hear that term for the very first time in their life. So let us know, how do I open up this account?
Yeah. So I got that. I really learned that term on another podcast, which obviously, since you're listening to this podcast, you're very wise and intelligent. So I'm glad everybody's listening. But honestly, I've found my biggest and best ideas listening to podcasts, because I think these are just such valuable conversations. And I first heard that term on Founders Magazine's podcast, and there was a guy on there, which I need to look up his name so I can quote him correctly, but he did $1 billion launch. So if you look up the Founder podcast and look up $1 billion launch, he did $1 billion in a day, I think, or in 7 days, in a super short period. And he said, the way that I did that, he said, 5 years before I was going to do this launch, I started going out and just serving and helping people and investing, knowing that the right people would be willing to support me when I needed help. And so reciprocity is, the Goodwill bank account, and reciprocity is not me saying, hey, Christine, I'm going to help you today, but you need to help me tomorrow. That's bartering or exchange, or that's just commerce, right? That's transactional. Reciprocity is man, I see you're doing something great that I want to be a part of and support, and I'll just support you because I want to help you. And then down the road, you may voluntarily come back and say, hey, I see you're doing something, can I help you with that? Or if we have a great relationship, I do, and I have invested, I do have the right to say, hey, would you mind giving me a review on this or helping me out with something? And it will naturally flow because it's not a contrived transactional relationship. And so with your Goodwill bank account, it's really showing up and making the world that you want to live in and choosing to do that. And so I want to live in a world where people are kind, but they're direct and upfront and honest. So that's how I operate. And I want to live in a world where if I launch a new idea, I not only have clients and prospects that become, clients and support me and help the launch, but where my friends just support me just because they're my friends. And so those are just a couple examples, but that's the world I want to live in. So that's how I show up and that's how I operate. And when you invest like that, then you create goodwill and all of that comes back to us at the right time. And that's, so there's not a straight like 2 + 2 formula, but it's more of the heart attitude of just saying, how can I serve and show up and how can I make your life a little better, whoever you're interacting with, and make you feel better today. And then the rest of it will work out. And it does work out. And the riches are unlimited in your life then, not just monetary. That's what everybody hears when they hear that, but it's really unlimited when you approach things that way. So that's what, to me, it means to invest in your Goodwill bank account. And it pays off very well. It's a much better way to live than
totally
always taking.
It feels so aligned and in flow. And, I love creating relationships and I love having people like you on the podcast because it's such an inspiration. And oftentimes society tells us we need to be like in a certain way, or, we all know these sales movies that we are watching and we think like, whoa. And then on the other hand, like it's fascinating how people can get rich so fast. And on the other hand, it's like we see, well, that's not our way. So we block off a lot of great ideas that are just not executed in a way that where people come from the heart, where they really care, where it's more the transaction, like get it done, get the money, and off we go. And so I love that. And I also love what you have created with your company to really make sure you get to support people in the right way with the right voice. And your amazing gift that you are bringing is a free sample article. I'm so grateful for that. So tell us about it. And, we'll have a link in the show notes. But what will people get when they actually get the free sample article?
Yeah. So copywritertoday.net is a company I started in 2014 after listening to a podcast episode about something else that inspired me. So we created that service because I realized after building thousands of websites over the years that people could have a great asset like a website or their LinkedIn profile or even a Facebook page. But they didn't have the ability or the time or skill, to put out great content that tells their story. And the key with content marketing is consistency. Yes, you do need to have high quality stories. Yes, you do need to have calls to action. You do need to have all these components. But in my opinion and experience, those are actually secondary to just consistently showing up and sharing something with your audience. And so we created Copywriter Today to help entrepreneurs, and salespeople and coaches and consultants all around the world consistently speak to their audience through blog posts and email marketing that they want to send out. So if you go to copywritertoday.net, we'll give you a free sample article. You can see how the service works. You can talk to and interact with our team through that process. You get to know who we are. And that way you just get a free article that's, shows you kind of what it's like, and you can use that for whatever you'd like. And obviously if it's a great fit, we'd love to do more for you, and we can talk about that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I have so many more questions, but I really would love to know in our next interview, like, what are the first steps somebody can take to figure out if, you know, their content is kind of hitting the mark, like what needs to be in a great article so it makes sense, it's appealing to people, and also the call to action is not missing. But for today, our time is up, and I thank you so much for sharing your story. What an inspiration, and I can't wait to hear from the listeners. What are they taking away? And I'm really looking forward to having you back very soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I totally agree with Gabe when he said it will all come back to you. And when I was an exchange student in the US, my host mom always used to say, what goes around comes around. Back then, I did not really get that. All right. I was still in high school. But with every year that passes, I get more and more of that amazing idea. The more you give, the more you will receive. So opening up in our businesses for serving, for coming from that place of love, for really caring about our customers will care about us. And I usually don't call them customers. I call them soulmate clients, but that is another story. And I've already done a podcast on it, Variety Friday. So you want to check that out too. And while you are listening right now, I'm inviting you to hop on over to ChristineSchlonski.com, find the podcast tab and the episode with Gabe, get into the resource section to get your free gift, as well as having all the links available that connect you to Gabe. I highly recommend you check him out and get an understanding of the amazing work he does. Once you're over there, sign up for the empowerment notes. That's empowerment right into your inbox. And if you want to, if you feel like you need to do something on lead generation, there is the experience on ChristineSchlonski.com where you can actually experience the Heart-Centered Lead Generation Summit yourself by signing up. It's for free. So hop on over to ChristineSchlonski.com and learn from the 40 amazing teachers on the Heart-Centered Lead Generation Summit, as well as listening to all the podcast guests. So there is a ton of content waiting for you, helping you to feel amazing when you are selling to your soulmate clients and making life and business so much more fun. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in this beautiful world. And I'm saying bye for now.